Bula, and welcome to Fiji. We wish you a very pleasant stay. You, of course, are in very good hands with the Forum Secretariat. I just wanted to very quickly highlight some of the issues that we have actually been thinking about in Fiji, and I assume that it is also applicable to all of us. That, of course, as the Chairman has highlighted, is the issue of SDGs and the need to, of course, focus on that. But the implementation of SDGs and to reach that target by 2030 obviously requires many of the countries in the Pacific to have access to finance, need access to development that will actually facilitate the implementation and indeed the attainment of the SDGs. So I think that is very, very important. As we've, the focus of this is financing for development solutions. In the quest for development also, we tend to forget about sometimes we tend to focus on bricks and mortars and foreign direct investment, but we tend to forget about things like Human Development Index, which hopefully the SDGs will help us focus on also. Of particular interest to us in Fiji, and as we've discussed with many of the other countries too, and with the discussions with the MDBs too, is the issue of the vulnerability index. We believe that the development of a vulnerability index is very, very critical. As we saw last year in Fiji, we had a cyclone, second strongest cyclone ever recorded to hit landfall in the world. It wiped off 1/3 of the value of our GDP. It's about $1.4 billion. Now that is an enormous setback for any country. But you can imagine that if that type of magnitude of disaster does happen, then you can have 20 years of development actually set back overnight. And you may need 20 or 30 years to recover and come back to the position that you were in. And I think the assessment of that and development of that index is very critical for all of us. Because if we do want to get concessional loans, if we do want to get grant finance, if we want to access climate finance, it is very important for us as a region to be able to be focused on that fundamental issue of vulnerability. The reality, of course, ladies and gentlemen, is that we have very low, negligible carbon footprint, all of us in the Pacific. But the paradox, of course, is that we are the cold face of climate change. We are the ones who will suffer first. We are the ones who are vulnerable. So therefore, it is very critical for us to be able to direct our resources, to be able to use the forum and other partners to develop that vulnerability index. So when we do go and speak to World Bank, when we do speak to ADB, when we speak to IMF and other development partners and multilateral agencies and multilateral development banks, that we actually have something to hang our hat on. The other, of course, ladies and gentlemen, is to create that awareness about vulnerability. We need to be able to also focus on our short-term and medium-term needs to be able to help us focus for the future. In Fiji, we have an enormous challenge, but we also see that as an opportunity. 69.4% of our total population is below the age of 40. I'm not sure about the demographic mix in your respective countries, but I suspect it is similar or thereabouts. So these present enormous challenges, but also opportunities. And how do we harness that energy? How do we harness that energy of our young people is a development challenge for us also. Last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, as the Honourable Chair has said, that we need to be able to think outside the box. The new challenges that are presented to us are unique. We are in the 21st century, yet some of the issues that we are dealing with, perhaps what the Talatala had mentioned, are perhaps the creation of 2 centuries ago. And how do we provide remedial efforts towards that, fixing up those problems, but also positioning ourselves for the future. Regional cooperation, we believe, is very critical. Regional cooperation is critical for 2 reasons. One is that it helps us identify our own specificities, what are the unique features of our own respective countries, but there are also at the same time many commonalities that we can actually feed upon from each other and be able to learn from each other. So we would like to, with those few words, be able to perhaps provide some food for thought in the discussion that will ensue today and tomorrow. And we once again welcome you to Fiji and wish you a very pleasant stay. Vinaka, thank you.